The lobster shells cracked like fireworks as my daughter-in-law leaned close and whispered, "No extra food for you, we don't feed waste." I dragged my fork along the rim of my empty plate, the way she dragged dignity out of family dinners. As the butter scent rose thick and greasy, it clung to the lie she'd told everyone that I was taken care of. When Gracie tried to pass me bread and Danielle snatched it back, I watched my son lower his eyes instead of his voice. The same woman who spends my money bragged that she controls her house, and tonight she proved it. So I nodded, ate my leaf of lettuce, and later removed her from every future she thought she'd already inherited. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. By the time I turned onto their street, the sky over the harbor had gone that flat, steel gray that makes the ocean and the houses all look the same. Evan and I used to drive this way in his rusted pickup, pointing at old clapboard houses and guessing who lived inside. Now his house didn't look like anything you guessed at, it looked like something you saved to a Pinterest board. New gray siding, black trim, cable railing on the front steps. A perfect potted evergreen by the door, even though the wind coming off the water could have snapped it in half. Warm lights glowed in the big front window. I could see silhouettes moving, Danielle's sharp, quick outline and a smaller one bouncing near her, Gracie. That was why I got out of the car. I balanced the bakery box under my arm, feeling the cold in my knuckles, and walked up the stone path. The old crooked walkway Evan and I patched one summer was gone. It looked like a model home now, like no one ever really lived in it. The door opened before I could knock. Marian, Danielle's teeth were very white against her lipstick. "Come in, it's freezing." Warmth and the smell of melted butter rolled out and wrapped around me. My stomach tightened, not with hunger exactly, with memory. "Hi Danielle," I said, stepping inside. "Grandma," Gracie launched herself at me, skinny arms cinched around my waist. "There's my girl," I murmured into her hair, breathing in the simple, honest smell of child, shampoo and crayons. "Careful, honey," Danielle called, "don't wrinkle her coat." "It's fine," I said, though I smoothed it anyway. Evan appeared from the kitchen, dish towel over his shoulder. "Hey, Mom," he kissed my temple quick. His eyes slid past me toward his wife, checking something I couldn't see. "Smells fancy," I said. He gave a little laugh that didn't land anywhere. "Yeah, well," Danielle went all out. All out was an understatement. The dining room looked like a magazine photo. In the center of the table, bright red lobsters were piled on a long platter, claws already cracked, tails curled. Bowls of drawn butter, lemon wedges, a basket of golden rolls, little ramekins of sauce, crystal glasses with something pale and effervescent beating down the sides. There was even a salad, glossy with vinaigrette, layered with cherry tomatoes and shaved cheese. I followed the curve of the table, looking for my place. 3 settings gleamed, large plates, seafood crackers, little forks, wineglasses. At the end of the table sat a smaller plate, no crackers, no tiny fork. A white bowl rested on it, holding a few limp lettuce leaves, 2 cucumber slices, and 1 cherry tomato cut in half. That was mine. Danielle glided in behind me. "So," she said brightly, "I did a lighter option for you, Marian. We've been really intentional about portions." I felt her eyes on the bowl, not on me. "We portion meals carefully, seafood isn't cheap." She laughed like she'd told a joke. "With the remodel, we're watching every dollar, I know you understand." Evan picked up a bottle of white wine, pouring for himself, for Danielle, for Gracie, just a splash. His hand hovered over my empty glass, then faltered. He didn't look at me. Gracie reached for the bread basket, fingers closing around a roll. She leaned toward my place, voice barely above a breath. "Here, Grandma." "Sweetheart," Danielle's tone sharpened, still soft but edged. "We don't need extra. Grandma's plate is perfect as it is." Gracie froze, the roll hung between us like contraband. "It's just a roll," she whispered. "We're not wasting food tonight," Danielle replied, lifting it gently from my setting and putting it back. She straightened the basket, then the napkin, controlling every crumb. "Everyone respects the system, remember." Evan stared at the lobsters. My son, who used to sneak me the last piece of haddock when money was tight, couldn't meet my eyes. I pulled out my chair and sat in front of my little island of greens surrounded by abundance. The smell of butter and salt pressed in on me. Gracie's hand found my shoulder. "Sorry, Grandma," she murmured. "Ed." I covered her fingers with mine. "You did nothing wrong," I said quietly. Then I picked up my fork, speared a single leaf, and smiled a small, polite smile that didn't belong to me at all. "Don't worry," I said, my voice steady. "I understand perfectly." And as the first crack of lobster shell split the silence, I realized I did. The first few cracks of shell were almost festive, sharp little pops under the low music. Butter hissed in the tiny dishes when hot meat hit it. Everyone else leaned in, I leaned back. I moved a leaf of lettuce around my bowl, listening. "So," Danielle said, lifting her wineglass just enough for the pendant light to catch it, "this Sansera is from a tiny import shop down by the marina. The owner practically scolded me for pairing cheap wine with good seafood." She laughed, the sound smooth and practiced. "If we're going to host, we host responsibly. Quality ingredients, controlled portions, no waste." She took a slow sip like she was on camera. "Responsibly," I echoed, keeping my tone neutral. "With intention," she corrected, smiling at me as if we were in on something together. "People don't realize how reckless big, sloppy dinners can be. Financially, health-wise, it all adds up. We just don't live like that anymore." Evan jumped in too quickly. "Yeah, she's got spreadsheets and everything," he said, grabbing his lobster cracker like a lifeline. "Color-coded grocery budget, portions, the works, it's impressive." He poured himself more wine, even though his glass was still half full. I watched the way his hand shook slightly, the way he kept glancing between me and Danielle like a man monitoring a storm radar. I ate a cucumber slice. It crunched loud in my own head. Across from me, Gracie was barely picking at her lobster now. She nudged a piece through the butter, eyes drifting to my bowl and then away again. Her lips were pressed so tight they'd lost their color. "Grandma," she said finally, barely louder than the clink of cutlery, I didn't know Mom was doing it like this." "Gracie," Danielle said, pleasant voice pulled taut, "we don't comment on other people's plates." I kept my eyes on my granddaughter. "I'm okay," I told her, soft but steady. "You didn't do anything wrong." Gracie's shoulders dipped in relief, but shame still sat heavy on her small face. I put that look in the same mental file as Danielle's smile, Evan's shaky laugh, my empty wineglass, a growing collection. "So Mom," Evan said quickly, "how's everything? You keeping busy?" "I am," I said. "I'm at the community kitchen more these days. Lydia's got me chopping vegetables and bossing college volunteers around." Danielle's fork paused midair. "Oh, that place," she said lightly. "They emailed about a fundraiser. I had to tell them we're just not in a position to give right now, between the reno and, well, life. Imported wine, renovated house, lobster for 3, not in a position." I nodded as if the math made sense. Inside, I highlighted the sentence and stuck it to the front of the file. Shells piled up, conversation thinned. Finally, Danielle dabbed her mouth and stood. "Everyone stay put," she said. "Dessert time." My bakery box sat untouched on the far counter, a quiet little square of home in a room curated within an inch of its life. Danielle didn't look at it. She came back with a long white platter carrying 3 perfect circles of chocolate torte, each dressed up with whipped cream and a twist of orange peel like a bow. One in front of Evan, one in front of Danielle, one in front of Gracie. Then she straightened, met my eyes, and smiled. "I figured you'd skip dessert," she said. "You're always so disciplined, we don't want to overdo it." She set nothing in front of me, neat as a place card. Gracie's fork stopped in midair. "Mom." "It's fine," I said before Danielle could shape the moment. My voice sounded almost bored to my own ears. "I've had plenty." Danielle relaxed, mistaking my calm for agreement. As chocolate and citrus scented the air, I let my gaze drift over the table one more time, the full plates, the empty space, the unopened box on the counter, my granddaughter's stricken face, my son's guilt. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice, didn't stand up. I just started a new list in my head. Because Danielle thought tonight was about a salad and a skipped dessert. She had no idea I'd just decided this would be the last thing she ever got to portion for me. I didn't start the car. The house glowed in the rearview like a catalog photo, warm, perfect, sealed. My hands stayed on the wheel until my fingers stopped buzzing from holding myself together at that table. Then I picked up my phone and hit Lydia's name. She answered over the sound of clattering pans. Well, are you full of rich people's seafood or full of regret? Let's just say I won't need antacids, I said. My voice sounded thinner than I meant it to. She went quiet a beat. That bad? She's very proud of her portion. System, I said, let's leave it there. That tracks, Lydia muttered. Funny thing, her name popped up here last week. My eyes lifted to the house again. Oh. We sent that email blast, remember, asking our regulars to share the winter fundraiser link, she sighed. Danielle wrote back, said they're under tight finances from the renovation, not in a position to contribute. Very polished no. Tight finances. I watched one of their silhouettes cross the dining room window, clearing plates. She served lobster, I said, and wine I can't pronounce, and she gave me salad. Lydia swore softly. Marion. It's all right, I said, though the word felt wrong in my mouth. Actually, I think I need to check something. Check what? A hunch, I told her. I'll call you tomorrow. When the line went dead, the car felt even quieter. I opened my banking app, the blue login screen suddenly heavy. My thumb scrolled past the usual pension, rent, utilities, the small transfer to the community kitchen. Then I went farther back. There should have been a transfer to Evan, $2,000 he'd needed to bridge a couple of weeks. I remembered the call, the embarrassment in his voice, the way I'd written it down just to keep myself honest. But on the app, the date was clean, no outgoing transfer, no record, just nothing. I blinked, scrolled again, checked the month view, still nothing. Slowly, I pulled my small spiral notebook from my bag, flipping to that week. There it was in black ink, transfer to Evan, $2,000 bridge, circled, starred. The notebook said yes. The bank said no. I stared at the contradiction, at the tidy house in my mirror, at the word tight looping through my head, tight portions, tight finances, tight control. My pen was already in my hand when I realized it. On a fresh page I wrote, dinner at Evans, check all transfers, ask bank about missing $2,000. Then under it I added one more line. If she's portioning my food, what else has she been portioning that I can't see? The Harbor Cafe was almost empty, just the hum of the espresso machine and the faint rattle of the heater in the corner. I picked this place because you could see the water and still hear yourself think. I got there early and took the table by the window. The ferry slid past in the distance, and I watched it the way you watch an old coworker walk by, familiar but no longer yours. Evan came in with the wind at his back, hair mussed, jacket too thin. He paused when he saw me, then gave that little half-smile he's had since he was 10. Hey, Mom, he said, shrugging out of his coat. Sorry, traffic was a mess. You live 8 minutes away, I said, but I smiled to take the sting out. He ordered just coffee, no food, no extra anything. When he sat down across from me, he wrapped both hands around the cup like he needed the warmth to talk. So he started, then cleared his throat. About last night. I waited. I wanted to say I'm sorry, he said in a rush, for how Danielle spoke to you, the food stuff, it was off, I should have stepped in. Thank you, I said, it was noticeable. He huffed out a humorless laugh. Yeah, she's been really rigid lately, budgets, wellness, all that. She said later she was just trying to stick to her system, but that's not your burden. I kept my gaze on him, not bailing him out with easy words. He stared into his coffee. She has this idea that when you help us out financially, it creates strain. He actually did the air quotes, her word. Strain how? I asked. She feels like your support comes with expectations, he said, wincing. Like we have to host a certain way when you're around, keep the house at some standard. She says if we don't, it looks like we're misusing your money. He shook his head. It's twisted, I know, but that's how she talks about it. Inside, I tucked that sentence right under tight finances. She thinks I create strain by easing it, I said quietly. I don't, he said quickly. I know you're trying to help, I've just let her frame it. He swallowed. especially last time with the money. My fingers tightened on my mug. The last time I helped was supposed to be for bills to cover a gap. He flinched. Yeah, about that. He rubbed his forehead. Danielle convinced me we should put most of it into the house, the dining room specifically. She said if the space looked put together, everything else would follow, stabilizing the home environment, her phrase. In my mind, the new table, the chairs, the perfect light over our meager salad snapped into sharp focus. So my bridge money is hanging over your lobster, I said. He winced. When you say it like that, it sounds awful. It is awful, I said, but my voice stayed calm, too calm. Did any of it go to what you told me it would? Some, he whispered, not most, and she didn't want to tell you because she said you'd judge how we chose to spend it. I sat back, feeling something inside me go F. Rom hurt to hard. For the record, I said, I don't care about the light fixture, I care about being lied to while I sit under it. He finally looked up at me, eyes shiny. I'm sorry, Mom, I've been trying to keep the peace so long I stopped noticing who was paying for it. I nodded slowly, more to myself than to him. Thank you for being honest, I needed to understand the full picture. What are you going to do? He asked. I slid my hand over my bag, feeling the edge of my notebook inside, the weight of my questions and missing numbers. I'm going to stop being part of the strain, I said, at least on your bank accounts. He frowned. I don't follow. You don't have to, I told him gently, not yet. Later, back in my apartment, I didn't call Danielle, I didn't send a text or a carefully worded email. I opened my notebook to the back, found the number I'd written years ago and dialed. Walter Briggs, Estate Law, the receptionist answered. My name is Marion Cole, I said, watching the dark water outside my window. I need to make some changes, and I think I've waited long enough. Walter's office still smelled like old paper and lemon polish, same as the last time I'd been there to sign a simple will and pretend life was straightforward. Marion, he said, standing to shake my hand, you sounded motivated on the phone. That's one word for it, I replied, taking the chair across from his desk. I think my generosity has been repurposed. He listened while I laid it out, the missing transfer, the notebook, the dinner that wouldn't leave my head. When I finished, he slid my phone closer. Let's look, he said, together. We went line by line through my accounts. My pension, utilities, donations, all fine. Then he opened an account I'd half forgotten, the family emergency fund Evan had access to. Here, Walter said, tapping the screen, a neat list of withdrawals stared back at us. Every time you move money to Evan, within a few days there's a round number debit from this account. Next tab, a list of charges. Heavy tide events, Harbor and Vine Imports, Coastal Tabletop Co., he read. These ring any bells? I didn't have to answer. I'd seen those names tagged under Danielle's party photos, lobster spreads, imported wine, rented glassware, a life arranged for the camera. So my bridge money left here, I said slowly, pointing at the withdrawals, and reappeared as centerpieces and canapes. Walter nodded, and because Evan added Danielle as an authorized cardholder, she doesn't need your permission to do it. It landed like a stone in my chest, not a mistake, a pattern. Close it, I said, the emergency fund, any automatic transfers to Evan's household, any shared anything today. He didn't flinch. We'll move what's left into new accounts in your name only, he said. New bank, new protections, nobody touches it without you. We opened a fresh checking account and savings at a different bank. No joint access, extra verification. Then he asked, any charities you want to build in? Lydia's Community Kitchen, I said immediately. Set up a regular gift now and more later, in Gracie's name, without giving Danielle a dime of control. Walter's smile was small but real. We can do that. By the time I walked back out into the cold, the old account was scheduled for closure. The new ones were live and a transfer confirmation pinged on my phone to Gracie Cole Community Meal Fund. A second notification sat right under it, a text from Gracie. Grandma, I loved seeing you tonight. Next time can it just be us? I was still smiling at that when a third thing lit up the screen. Incoming call, Danielle. I watched Danielle's name blink on my screen outside Walter's building, the wind off the harbor cutting through my coat. Then I let it ring out. By the time I got home, there were 3 missed calls and a voicemail. I set the phone on the counter, face down, made myself a grilled cheese and tomato soup, and only when the dishes were done did I press play. "Hey Marion," her voice purred, all honey, "just checking in. Also, we're seeing something odd with the bank, probably a mix-up with that emergency account you set up for us. Call me when you get this, we'll clear it up." Delete. The next morning, 2 more. "We tried to get groceries and the card declined. The bank says the account is closed. Maybe you pressed the wrong thing online. These systems are confusing. Just call me, okay?" Delete. That evening, folding laundry, I listened to the third. This one had teeth. "I really don't understand why you'd close an account without talking to us. That money was for family emergencies, Marion. This impacts Gracie. We're a unit. You don't just make unilateral decisions that affect our household." I saved that one, labeled it, then I put the phone in a drawer and made tea. The next day, it was Evan who called. "Mom," he said, voice tight, "did you close the emergency account?" "Yes," I said, "I did." He was quiet a beat. Without telling us. "I shouldn't have opened it like that in the first place," I replied. "It became a party fund. I'm correcting my mistake." "She says you blindsided us, that it's punishment." "I'm revisiting my boundaries," I said. "From now on, my money goes where people aren't ashamed to admit how they're using it." He blew out a breath. "I don't know how to stand between you two." "You don't have to stand between us," I told him. "You can just stand where you choose. I'm standing here." After we hung up, I called Lydia. "So you've gone quiet," she said. I could hear clanking pans in the background. "Good, silence can be strategy." "It feels mean," I admitted. "It's not mean," she said. "It's information. Let her show you who she is when she can't get to your wallet or your attention." That night, my phone buzzed on the table while I read. I ignored it until I saw a new email notification, not a call. From Gracie. Subject: I drew something for you. The attachment was a colored pencil lighthouse, a little crooked, standing against blue waves. At the bottom, block letters for Grandma, our lighthouse. Her note beneath it was short. "You said lighthouses don't chase boats, they just stay bright so people can find them. I like that, love you." The screen flashed again, Danielle calling, and for once I didn't even feel tempted. I printed Gracie's lighthouse and pinned it to my fridge. If Danielle couldn't stand my silence, that was her storm. I'd decided which ship I was shining for. The lighthouse drawing was still crooked on my fridge when Danielle switched from calling me to performing for everyone else. A notification pinged while I was finishing my coffee. Her post popped up at the top of the screen, a photo carousel from Lobster night, the table glowing, shells piled high, wineglasses catching the light, Evan and Gracie mid-laugh. I wasn't in a single shot. The caption was long, of course. "People think generosity is throwing money around. We've built this home on a tight budget, no handouts, just responsible hosting and hard work. Lobster night for my little family, done within our means." Hashtags about intentional living, tight finances, debt-free journeys. "No handouts," I said to my empty kitchen. I took a screenshot, then another to catch the caption and timestamp, 9:12 a.m. New album record. A little later, I called Walter to ask about a different form. I mentioned the post almost as an aside. "Screenshot it," he said immediately. "Print it, date it. Any posts, texts, voicemails that misrepresent your role, keep them. Think of it like a logbook." A ship's log, I thought, just a different kind of weather. I printed the post, wrote the date in the margin, and slid it into a manila folder. The folder went into my desk drawer, right on top. Then I headed to a place where people didn't need captions to prove they were generous. Lydia's community dinner smelled like tomatoes, onions, and burnt coffee, and I loved it the second I walked in. Pans steamed on battered metal tables, voices rolled off the low ceiling, and someone had taped a crooked welcome sign above the serving line. "There she is," Lydia called, waving a ladle, "our fancy new donor." "Don't you dare," I said, but my cheeks warmed anyway. She hugged me quick and tight, no performance, no show, just glad I was there. Apron, she ordered, you're on chili. So I ladled, and nobody told me to watch the portions. When the rush slowed, Lydia shoved a plate into my hands, same food as everyone else, and I sat at a long table and listened to real laughter, real complaints, real life. My phone buzzed in my pocket. From Evan, Gracie wants to ask you something, can you talk tonight? Of course, I texted back. That night, Gracie's face filled my screen, hair messy, paint on her fingers. I could see the lighthouse drawing taped behind her now. Grandma, she said, twisting a strand of hair, could I maybe stay with you more weekends? Like regularly, it's calmer there, and I like the kitchen with Miss Lydia, and you never make me feel bad for eating. The words landed heavier than she knew. Yes, I said immediately, if your dad can work out the schedule, my door's open, every weekend you want. Her whole face lit up. Really? Really, I said, we'll make you a toothbrush drawer and everything. After we hung up, my phone chimed again. Danielle had posted once more. Preview line, nothing cuts deeper than being used by someone you trusted with your home. I didn't even open it before I hit screenshot. Then I printed Gracie's lighthouse again and slid it into the front of the folder. If Danielle was busy rewriting the story, that was fine. I just started my own version, one where I had proof. By the time the next invitation came, I already knew I wasn't showing up empty-handed again. It arrived as a group text. Danielle loved those. Casual Saturday dinner, just a few neighbors and friends, would love to reset as a family. Read. Evan added C. Apparently. Please come, Mom, for Gracie. She's excited you might be here. That was the only reason I said yes. Saturday evening, I stood in my kitchen and poured hot vegetable soup into my old green thermos, the one that had ridden ferries and sat in dispatcher booths for years. I wrapped a cloth napkin around a small roll, tucked a square of cornbread into a container, and slipped everything into my canvas tote. It wasn't about the food, it was about not sitting at that table waiting to see what I was allotted. The wind off the harbor had a wet edge when I walked up their path. The house looked even more like a magazine now, string lights glowing, laughter already floating out of the open window. Somewhere in there, Danielle was arranging herself. The door opened before I could knock. Gracie this time. Grandma, she flung herself at me, face flushed. You came. I said I would, I said, hugging her tight. She spotted the tote and cocked her head. What's that? She whispered. Insurance, I murmured. Her mouth twitched like she wanted to laugh but wasn't sure if it was allowed. Inside, the dining room table was set again, though less grand than lobster night: roast chicken, roasted vegetables, a big green salad, a bottle of wine in an ice bucket. Two couples I recognized vaguely from neighborhood photos stood near the window, wineglasses in hand. Danielle glided in from the kitchen, all neutral knit and soft perfume. Her smile landed on the guests first, then on me. Marion, she said, almost too bright, I'm so glad you could make it. I'm glad to be here, I replied. My tote hung comfortably from my shoulder. One of the guests, a woman with silver streaks in her dark hair, stepped forward. You must be Mom, she said warmly. We've heard so much about you. I hope it's at least half flattering, I said. She laughed. Depends which of them is talking. Evan appeared at my side, a little out of breath. Hey Mom, let me take your coat. He relieved me of it, but his eyes dropped to the tote and stayed there a beat too long. Danielle saw it next. The flicker in her expression was tiny, but I caught it, the brief hitch before the smile snapped back into place. Oh, she said lightly, you brought something. Yes, I said, just a little dinner for myself. Last time there was some confusion about portions and I didn't want to add any strain to your system. I kept my tone pleasant, almost apologetic. This way you don't have to worry about me. The room went a notch quieter. One of the guests glanced at Danielle, then at the full table. Danielle's knuckles whitened around the back of a chair before she let go. That wasn't necessary, she said, the edges of her voice wrapped in sugar. We have plenty. I know, I said, this is for my peace of mind, not your pantry. Evan cleared his throat. Mom's just being quirky, he said quickly, trying to turn it into a joke. She's always prepared. Nobody laughed exactly, but the tension loosened enough for people to sit. I took a chair a little down from Danielle near the corner. Gracie slid into the seat next to me without asking. When everyone was settled, I quietly took my thermos and containers out of the tote. The metal clicked softly on the wood. The silver-streaked woman across from me watched, curious but not unkind. "That smells amazing," she said as I poured soup into the lid. "What is it?" "Vegetable," I said, "leftovers from a community dinner." "That's adorable," Danielle cut in, a shade too quick. "Marion's very into those things. We try to contribute when we can, but with the reno and everything." "But you did so much of it because of her, right?" the woman said, turning to her with an easy smile. "The remodel." Danielle blinked. What do you mean?" The woman sipped her wine. "At the block party this summer, you were telling us how generous your mother-in-law was, how she'd helped you finally get the house where it needed to be." She made air quotes, oblivious to the way color was rising in Danielle's face. "You said you couldn't have done the dining room without her support." The words hung over the table like someone had opened a window in January. Evan's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Gracie stared at her plate, shoulders creeping up toward her ears. I mean," Danielle stammered, a little laugh bubbling up and dying quickly. "We were talking in very general terms. You must have misunderstood. We've always managed on our own. No handouts." Her eyes darted to me, then away. "But you definitely said her name," the woman insisted, cheerful and unaware. "I remember because I thought, wow, that's so lucky having family support like that. You even joked about her being your unofficial investor." She grinned at me. "We all agreed you sounded like a saint." Danielle's smile cracked clean down the middle. "People exaggerate at parties," she said, voice thinning. "I might have been simplifying for the story." I took a calm spoonful of soup. It was still hot, still good. "That's the funny thing about stories," I said, not raising my voice. "They have a way of finding their way back to the people in them." The silver-streaked woman's husband chuckled, clearly enjoying the story more than anyone else at the table. "Oh, it was more than just the dining room," he said, wiping his mouth. "At the block party you were on a roll, Danielle. You said, what was it?" He snapped his fingers, trying to remember. "You joked you hacked adulthood because your mother-in-law helps finance your lifestyle while you still get to be the fun, generous host." Every fork on the table seemed to stop at once. What?" Danielle's laugh came out thin. "I would never phrase it like that." "You absolutely did," he said, oblivious. "You said you married into a support plan. We all thought, hey, at least she admits it." He grinned at me again. "We were a little jealous, honestly." The word lifestyle thudded in my chest. My soup suddenly tasted like nothing at all. Across from me, Evan's face went pale. He glanced from the guest to Danielle, then to me, as if trying to reconcile three realities at once. The online no-handouts crusader, the woman who'd called my money a strain, and the same woman bragging at parties that I funded her life. "Babe," he said quietly, "did you really say that?" Danielle's napkin twisted in her hands. "People at parties exaggerate," she said. "It was a joke, obviously." Her eyes flashed toward me. "Are we really dissecting throwaway comments now?" The silver-streaked woman finally realized something was off. "Oh, sorry," she said, looking between us. "I didn't mean to stir anything up. I just meant you said nice things about your mother-in-law." "Sure," Danielle said tightly. "So nice." Evan pushed his chair back. The legs scraped the floor. "Can I talk to you for a second?" he asked Danielle, already half standing. "In the middle of dinner," she hissed. "Yes," he said, and there was something in his tone I hadn't heard in years. They disappeared into the kitchen. Voices rose almost immediately, muffled, sharp edges slipping through the doorway. At the table, people suddenly found their vegetables extremely interesting. Gracie inched her chair closer until our shoulders touched. Her hand found my sleeve and gripped. When she spoke, her voice barely made it across the inches between us. "Please don't leave Dad behind," she whispered. "If you're mad at her, please don't leave him behind." The plea sliced cleaner than any accusation. "I'm not leaving you," I said softly. "Either of you. I'm just not letting someone else steer my boat anymore." She nodded, eyes shiny, staring at her plate so no one would see. Later at home, my phone lit up before I'd even taken off my shoes. Lydia. Well, she said, skipping hello, whatever happened at your son's tonight has already hit the community center grapevine. I sat down at the edge of my bed. That was fast. Portland doesn't do slow gossip, she said. Someone from your son's street volunteers here. She said Danielle's been telling people for months that you bankroll their upgrades but also weaponize it to control her. Now folks are repeating a new version that you showed up with your own dinner and humiliated her in front of guests. I let out a breath. So in her story, I'm the villain who feeds the beast and starves the host. Pretty much, Lydia said, but tonight those guests heard another story, one where she admitted you fund things. Rumors are colliding. That's when truth leaks out. After we hung up, I opened Danielle's profile. Posts had started to shift already. A new one sat where the Lobster brag had been. Sometimes the hardest part of adulthood is setting boundaries with family who use money to control you. Proud of us for learning to stand on our own. No more no handouts. Now it was about financial abuse and toxic strings. Comments poured in, people offering sympathy, validation, heart emojis. I didn't comment, I didn't text. I just took a screenshot, timestamped it, printed it, slid it into the record folder behind the dinner photos. Let her reinvent herself online. Let her talk in circles at block parties. Let the neighbors compare versions in driveways and in line at the community center. Truth I'd learned from years of tides didn't need help traveling. It just needed time and something solid to hit. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Evan. We need to talk, alone. I saw the post. I don't know who she's talking about anymore. Danielle showed up on a Wednesday like bad weather. I heard her before I saw her, the thud of her fist on my front door, sharp enough to rattle the mail slot. Marian, her voice cut straight through the wood. Open the door, we are not doing this. I set my coffee down and moved to the side window instead of the door. From there, I could see her on the stoop, coat half-zipped, hair scraped back, phone in one hand, fury in the other. Walter's voice passed through my head, keep a record of anything heated, dates, times, tone. So I lifted my phone, slid to the camera, and started recording. You close accounts without telling us, you show up with your own food to embarrass me, and now you're hiding, she shouted. You are making me look insane, Marian. Do you understand how this town talks? Across the street, Mrs. Callahan's curtain twitched. Danielle pounded again. That money was for family emergencies. You don't get to starve us out because you're having some pride fit. You've used money to control people for years, and the second I call it out, you slam doors. It's cruel. Her voice cracked on the last word. She glanced down at her own phone, jabbed something, then looked back at my door like she could glare through it. You want to be the victim, she said, quieter but sharper. Fine, but remember you locked us out, not me. She turned and stalked to her SUV, slammed the door, and peeled away too fast for a residential street. I stopped the recording, checked the file, and forwarded it to Walter with one line, outside my building this morning, logged in notebook. Almost immediately, a text from Evan popped up. Danielle just admitted she went to your place. I'm so sorry, Mom, I didn't know. Are you okay? I'm fine, I wrote back. She never got in. That's the important part. 2 days later, I was signing the last page of my updated trust in Walter's office. With this, he said, tapping the binder, your assets go to Evan and Gracie. Danielle has no control, no access, no role, and the video plus your written notes go in your file just in case. For once, I said, my silence is doing more work than my explanations ever did. Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed. From Evan, is this another good weekend for Gracie to stay with you? Things are tense. Then a second message. From Gracie, Dad said I can ask, can I come again? We can paint another lighthouse. Yes, I replied, I'll pick you up at 4. When I pulled into their driveway, Evan walked her out. Danielle stayed inside, a faint shape behind the curtain. As we turned onto the main road, Gracie spoke without looking at me. Grandma. Yes, honey. If Mom gets mad enough at you, she swallowed, can she make it so I'm not allowed to come anymore? Gracie's question sat in my chest for days. Can she make it so I'm not allowed to come anymore? No, I'd told her in the car, she can't make me stop wanting you here and there are things she doesn't have the power to touch. A week later I was back in Walter's office, proof of that in a neat stack of paper between us. This finishes it, he said, sliding the documents over. Trust, will, healthcare proxy, power of attorney, Evan and Gracie are protected. Your daughter-in-law has no authority anywhere in here. I scanned the pages, my name, Evan S., Gracie S., Danielle's not once. No scenario where Danielle gets to decide anything for you, Walter added. Not your money, not your care. Good, I said, she's had too much say in things that weren't hers already. I see. Ned, line after line, it didn't feel dark or morbid. It felt like finally putting locks on doors I should have closed years ago. You've drawn the boundary, Walter said. Now your job is simple, don't move it. At the community center, Lydia had 3 poster boards spread out and a marker behind her ear. You ready to see this? She asked. She turned one around, across the top in big letters. Gracie's Lighthouse Dinners. Underneath was Gracie's lighthouse drawing, the same crooked tower from my fridge. We're naming the monthly meals after her, Lydia said. You redirect your money, we direct the credit the right way. Gracie barreled over, cheeks pink. You like it? She asked, shoving a mock flyer into my hands. A community meal program funded in part by the Gracie Cole Lighthouse Fund. It's me, but not about me, she said. It's about helping people, my name just holds the flashlight. My eyes stung. I love it, I said, and I love that you're attached to something that feeds people, not followers. Evan arrived late, hands in his pockets, eyes on the flyers. She's mad, he said without preamble. Danielle says you're using our child for PR. He showed me his phone, post after post from Danielle. Beware of generous people who use money to own you. Sometimes the abuser is the one everyone thinks is sweet. She never says your name, he said, but everyone knows. And what do you think? I asked. He swallowed. I think I've been ignoring who she is because it was easier. Your money made it easier. I let her tell stories about you that weren't true and I didn't stop her. That's on me. I squeezed his arm. Seeing it is your work, fixing it is also your work. I can't do that part and I'm not paying for shortcuts anymore. He nodded, eyes on Gracie as she taped another lighthouse to the wall. I don't want to lose her, he said. Then don't, I replied, but you might have to lose some of this. I nodded toward his phone, toward Danielle's posts, the curated life. That night back home, another notification flashed. Danielle again, this time with a blurry photo of my building, circled in red. Funny how some people run to protect their assets when you stop letting them own you, the truth will come out. Comments were already dropping my first name. I took a screenshot, saved it, logged it. Then my thumb hovered over one new option I hadn't used yet. Report post. We were halfway through setting up for the first Gracie's Lighthouse dinner when the door at the top of the church stairs slammed so hard the exit sign rattled. Every head turned. Danielle stood there, one hand on the rail, the other clamped around her phone. Perfect coat, sharp boots, wrong room. Her eyes hit the banner first, Gracie's Lighthouse Dinners, then tracked down to Gracie, who was standing on a chair taping up a paper lighthouse. You have got to be kidding me, Danielle said, voice carrying through the whole basement. Gracie went rigid. Grandma, she whispered. I've got you, I murmured, steadying the chair. Hop down, sweetheart. She climbed down and slipped behind me. Danielle came down the stairs like she owned them. You really did it, she said, sweeping a hand at the flyers, the jars, the banner. Named a program after my child without even asking me, using her to polish your halo. Lydia stepped in, ladle still in her hand. Hi Danielle, she said, calm as a flat sea. We're setting up. If you want to talk, we can step outside. I'm not going anywhere, Danielle snapped. She's been turning this whole town against me, reporting my posts, running to lawyers, and now this. She jabbed a finger at me, playing saint at a soup line while you poison people against me. I haven't said a word about you, I said quietly. You've been doing that yourself. Murmurs stirred, someone shut off the radio, the room tightened. You think I don't hear what parents say at school? She went on. All of a sudden I'm the ungrateful one and you're the hero. You've been controlling us with money for years and now you're buying applause with my daughter's name." Evan's voice came from the doorway, "Danielle." He looked winded, like he'd run. His gaze took in the room, banner, volunteers, his wife in full flight. "We talked about this," he said. "You said you'd text, not this." "Of course you're on her side," she shot back. "You always are." He gestured around. "You're yelling at my mother in a room full of people who just want dinner. Our daughter is watching." Lydia moved a half step more between us. "You don't get to talk to her like that here," she said. "Not in this space." For the first time, Danielle seemed to really see the faces, the teen volunteers, the man with the walker, the single mom with a toddler on her hip, all staring. Envy flickered across her face when she looked at the banner again, at Gracie's name, not hers. "You all think she's so wonderful," she said, voice shaking. "You have no idea what she's really like." "Maybe," Lydia said, "but we're getting a pretty clear picture of you." Evan touched Danielle's elbow. "We're leaving," he said, not a suggestion. She jerked away but moved toward the stairs. At the top, she spun back, eyes locking on mine. "This isn't over," she said. "You don't get to take everything." The door banged shut behind her. The room exhaled. Lydia glanced at me. "You all right?" "I've ridden out worse weather," I said. At least this time I wasn't the only one who saw it. I picked up a stack of plates and handed them to a volunteer. "Let's finish, people will be hungry." As we went back to work, my phone buzzed in my apron pocket. Unknown number. "I was there just now, I saw what she did. We should talk about Danielle, there's history you don't know." The unknown number from the basement belonged to a woman named Ellen Porter. "I was there today," she said when I called back, "with my dad, the man with the walker. I used to work for the firm that handled Danielle's parents' estate. What I saw down there," she hesitated, "I've seen it before with them." The wind cut through my coat. "What are you saying, Ellen?" "I'm saying this isn't new," she replied. "Danielle's parents have already signed a release. Walter Briggs should have the documents by tomorrow. You're not crazy, Marion, and you're not her first target." The next afternoon, I sat in Walter's office again. Evan was beside me, knuckles white around his coffee cup. Walter slid a thin stack of photocopies across the desk. These came from a colleague with permission. The first page, petition for emergency power of attorney. Petitioner Danielle Hart Cole. The letter attached could have been written about me: tight finances, irresponsible spending, need to protect them from themselves. Then the bank statements, charges for home daycare, catering, wine, draining her parents, rainy day fund right after she gained access. Finally, a handwritten letter from her mother. "We love our daughter, but she does not love people. She loves control. Please ensure she cannot ever act as our agent." Evan read it twice. His face went gray. "She told me they abandoned her," he whispered. "Said they cut her off for no reason, that she'd never treat us like that." Walter's voice was gentle. "This is a pattern, Evan. She targets whoever represents safety, then tries to own it." "I let her do it to you," he said to me, eyes shining. "I watched her twist what you gave us and I stayed quiet because it was easier." "You believed the version that hurt least," I said. "Until it didn't. That's human, not evil. What you do now, that's your character." Walter flipped to a fresh page. "Given this, I'd like stronger language for anything involving Gracie, third-party trustee for her inheritance, explicitly barred guardianship for Danielle, no loopholes." "Lydia," I said immediately. "If I'm gone before Gracie's grown, Lydia helps manage it, and write it clearly. Danielle never controls a cent meant for that child." We signed again, more signatures, more locks snapping into place. Later, in Lydia's warm kitchen, I told her the rest. She listened, then said, "You know what you did, right? You broke her pattern. Her parents tried, you finished it. That's why she's flailing." That night, after dropping Gracie home, after she'd whispered, "If they split up, could I stay with you more, not just weekends?" And I'd answered, "We'll make whatever arrangement keeps you safest." My phone buzzed as I turned my own key. "Danielle, you think you've won because you lawyered up first. Enjoy your little victory, Marion. Money can't buy what I still have." 3 dots blinked. When Gracie is old enough to choose, we'll see which version of you she believes. The letter showed up 2 days after that last text, thick and heavy in my mailbox like it had weight beyond the paper. Same loopy handwriting, same return address. I brought it upstairs, set it on the coffee table, and went to put the kettle on. If Danielle was going to spend this much postage, I could at least be caffeinated. Gracie was on the floor by the window, a big sheet of watercolor paper taped down, brushes fanned out around her. She'd been at my place 3 weekends in a row now. The tightness in her shoulders I'd gotten used to seeing was slowly melting away. "Letter?" she asked, glancing back. "From your mom," I said. "I'm going to read it, that's all." She studied my face, then nodded and dipped her brush back into a puddle of blue. That was new, that she could register it and go back to painting instead of bracing. I sat down, opened the envelope, and unfolded 3 handwritten pages. The tone tried for reasonable, the content did not. She accused me of buying loyalty with money, of erasing her in the community, of weaponizing Gracie's name. She called the trust changes premeditated cruelty. She explained at length how I was the true abuser, how she was simply setting healthy boundaries after years of being controlling. If I hadn't seen the documents about her parents, I might have felt dizzy. Instead, I recognized whole phrases: tight finances, irresponsible spending, protecting the family. It was the same script, pointed in a new direction. By page 3, she got to her demand: restore the old accounts, roll back the legal changes, sit down as adults and renegotiate from a place of mutual respect. If I didn't, she warned, any fracture in the family would be on me. My heart rate didn't even spike. I read it through once, slid it into a plastic sleeve, wrote the date and a note in my notebook, matches language from prior filings, logged, no response. "What did it say?" Gracie asked, still painting. "Mostly that she's very upset with my choices," I said, "and that she'd like me to change them." "Are you going to?" she asked, not looking up. "No," I said, "my job isn't to make everyone comfortable, it's to keep us safe." She breathed out, almost like she'd been waiting to hear that exact sentence, and added another yellow beam to her lighthouse. A week later, Evan called. "I started therapy," he blurted, skipping hello. "Real therapy, not just complaining over beers." "Good," I said. "I told someone the truth," he went on, "about Dad avoiding conflict, about how I promised myself I'd be different and then married someone who does my avoiding for me, about you, about her, all of it." "That's harder than signing anything Walter slides across a desk," I said. He let out a shaky laugh. "Therapist says I've been outsourcing my spine." "I could have told you that for free," I said, and we both smiled. The fundraiser for Gracie's Lighthouse dinners felt like the opposite of everything Danielle curated: messy, loud, real. The hall was packed. Kids with face paint ran between tables. A local band played slightly off-key. People lined up for chili and cornbread and dropped crumpled bills into donation jars. A banner stretched across the stage: Gracies Lighthouse Fundraiser. Gracie stood next to me, staring up at her own drawing blown up huge. "It feels weird," she said, "but good weird." Lydia clinked a spoon against a mug and called for attention. "I just want to say this," she announced. "None of this happens without Marion deciding her kindness was going to feed people's stomachs, not their egos. She set boundaries and still chose generosity. That's real strength." People actually cheered. I wanted to hide under a table. Instead, I squeezed Gracie's hand. She squeezed back. Later, Walter arrived in his good coat, carrying a leather binder. "Everything's finalized," he said, handing it to me. Inside was my life on paper: trust, will, directives, clear lines protecting Evan and Gracie and locking Danielle out completely. On the last page, in plain English, the sentence I'd asked him to add: "Under no circumstances shall Danielle Hart-Cole have control over or access to any assets or decisions related to this estate." "Whatever story she tells," Walter said quietly, "this is the one that will stand." That night back home, I set Danielle's letter on one side of the table and Walter's binder on the other. Heat and ink, feeling and fact. My phone buzzed, a new email from Danielle, subject line: "For the record," sitting bold and unread. I pulled out a fresh notebook, uncapped my pen, and wrote at the top of the page. Dear Danielle. I sat there for a long time, just looking at the words I'd written at the top of the page. Dear Danielle. No, to whom it may concern, no, Ms. Cole, this wasn't business, not exactly, it was a closing. I took a breath, let my shoulders drop, and started writing. Dear Danielle. This will be the last time I respond to you directly. I paused, listening for how that felt in my own chest. Clean, not sharp, I kept going. You have said, in many different ways, that I am controlling, manipulative, and that I use money to buy loyalty. You are entitled to your version of events. I am writing to put my version in writing once so there is no confusion about my choices going forward. First, the financial part. I have closed all shared and emergency accounts. I will not be reopening them. I will not be giving you directly or indirectly access to any of my funds. Any support I choose to give in the future will go where I see honesty and gratitude, not entitlement. This is not punishment, it is a boundary. I underlined boundary once, then moved on. Second, the legal part. With the help of an attorney, I have updated my trust, will, and other documents. This is normal, responsible behavior for a person my age. You are not named in any of these documents in any capacity. You will never have authority over my care, my assets, or any funds designated for Gracie. If you attempt to interfere with these plans, Walter and his office will handle any response. I will not argue with you about my own estate. The pen didn't even shake. Third, Gracie. She is not a prize to be won nor a weapon to be used. She is a child who deserves calm, consistency, and space to form her own opinions over time. I have not and will not speak about you to her the way you speak about me online. When she asks questions, I answer about my actions and my feelings. I do not recruit her to my side. You may continue to tell whatever story you like about me in public. I won't participate in that conversation. My only concern is that Gracie knows today and later that I have always left my door open to her and that I never forced her into the middle of our conflict. I thought of her lighthouse drawing, beams labeled warmth and safe. I thought of her quietly eating soup at my table without apologizing for every bite. Finally, contact. From this point forward, I ask that you no longer call, text, or email me directly. If there is a logistical matter involving Gracie that requires my input, please communicate through Evan or, if necessary, through Walter's office. Any further attempts to confront me at my home or in public spaces will be documented as they have been and addressed through legal channels if needed. I am not writing this in anger, I am writing it in clarity. You have a pattern, you seek control over the people whose stability you depend on, then call yourself their victim when they pull back. I will not be part of that pattern anymore. You once told a table full of people that you had hacked adulthood by marrying into a support plan. I am simply letting you know the plan has ended. I will continue to live my life, love my son and granddaughter, and give where it does real good. You will continue to live yours as you see fit. Wherever our paths cross, I will be civil. I will not be involved. This is the last word I will offer you directly. What you do with it is yours. Marion. When I read it back, there was no heat in it, just straight lines. I made a copy for Walter's file, slid the original into an envelope, and addressed it in my own block letters. No return address. She already knew where I lived. The post office would do the rest. That Sunday, Evan and Gracie came over for dinner. No occasion, just a meal. I made chowder the way my mother had taught me, nothing fancy, just potatoes, onions, fish, cream. Gracie sliced bread with exaggerated care while Evan set the table, clinking plates in my tiny kitchen like it was a ritual he was relearning. No banner, he joked, looking around. No fundraiser tonight. Tonight is invitation only, I said, VIP list. Very important people, Gracie added, smug. We're the VIPs. We ate slowly. No one counted anyone's bites. No one commented on portions. Evan talked about therapy in halting, honest pieces. Gracie talked about school, about a teacher who'd asked her to design a poster for the art room. At one point, she looked up and said, I like it here, it's quiet even when we're talking. That's the goal, I said. When the plates were pushed back and the last of the bread was gone, we just sat there for a while, the three of us, in the soft lamplight. No lobster shells, no imported labels turned just so. Just regular dishes and full stomachs and the feeling, fragile but real, of something repaired, or at least no longer tearing. After they left, I washed up, wiped the table, and checked my phone. No new messages from Danielle. Maybe she was drafting her own letter, maybe she was posting, maybe she'd moved on to a new audience. It didn't really matter. For the first time in a long time, my heartbeat didn't hitch, wondering what she was doing. I took out my journal, the old spiral notebook that had started as a list of transfers and ended up a record of something much bigger, and turned to the last blank page. I wrote, "My legacy follows kindness." Then, beneath it, one more line, the one that had been forming in the back of my mind ever since that first night, sitting in front of a bowl of lettuce at a table covered in plenty. She denied me dinner, but she never imagined I'd deny her the one thing she wanted most: access to my future.